Welcome back, Truth Seeker. Put up a video last Friday. I said I'd take the top 10 questions. There's not that many questions that were asked, so we'll just go through all of them. Somebody asked, is Bitcoin the one world currency hiding in plain sight? Some interesting things about Bitcoin. And I think this is a good question. And I don't know the answer for sure, but I do imagine that the future one world currency will be an electronic currency in light of the direction of things. Using the alphabetic order, the word Bitcoin sums to 72, the same as the word world. Also, Bitcoin has gematria of 36. Remember, 666 is the 36th triangular number, and $ has gematria of 666. So does business. Again, check out that film Network. Important speech at the end of that film. It's a fictional film, but there's a lot of truth in it. In the end of that film, Ned Beatty is giving a lecture about how we live in a world of business and dollars. And when he gets to the point about business and dollars, he starts signaling with his fingers, what can be interpreted as 666. He doesn't do that in the speech until he gets to that point. Remember, fingers also has the gematria 666, just like business, just like $. So it's possible that Bitcoin is a prototype. It's also possible that maybe it is the one world currency hiding in plain sight. Next question. Do I have anything on Manson? Well, I know right away she doesn't follow my blog because I've linked my post on Manson as the top post since the day he died. And again, Charles Manson equals 83, just like murder. Dead at age 83. He spent 46 years in prison. Prison equals 46. Sacrifice 46. I suspect that Charles Manson has always been a psychological operations. August 9th, the date of the murders. Special date in the calendar year. 221st day of the year, like the Bavarian Illuminati, leaving 144 days left in the year. The word killer 144. We just saw the Son of Sam headlines this week, all centered on the number 144, number that has a lot to do with killing throughout history, especially in regards to these made-for-TV serial killers. So anyway, Charles Manson, from the date of the murders to the date of his death, his entire story is by the code, meaning he's part of the ongoing agenda. And, she said that she follows my work, but she must really not, because I put out also a few videos on the death of Manson, which are still up and haven't been deleted yet. So go back and watch the videos I already put up. For those of you who don't know how to search for videos, you have to click on my name and then click the videos tab and scroll through and see what I got. You can't just wait for stuff to pop up in your feed. Every day I have people leaving the comment, hey Zach, just found your channel, glad you're making videos again. And those comments are really discouraging to me because I've been making videos the whole 6 months since my channel was deleted, and everyone who leaves that comment reveals to me that they never took the time to search Zachary K. Hubbard in the search bar. They're just waiting for my video to pop up in their feed again. That's lazy. This person asked, do you believe the numbers are casting spells, as it were, when you connect the dots? Well, again, what do we call, writing out words? We call it spelling. Why? We know that there's another meaning for this word spell, as in casting magic. And again, this entire code of letters and numbers comes from Kabbalah. And there's a nice half to Kabbalah that's about spiritual ascension, understanding God, understanding your place in the world. There's another half called the Klippoth, which is about casting spells, hurting other people. It's the demonic half. And so, do I believe that these people can cast spells? Well, it seems that somehow they're most definitely achieving something over the populace of the world, whether you want to call it casting a spell or not. And long before I understood about letters and numbers, right after September 11th, I explained things to my own mother. I said, you know what I think we're living in? I think somehow, some way, it's like we're characters in a Disney movie, and there's an evil spell over the people of the land, and this spell doesn't allow people to see things as obvious as they are, such as the lies of September 11th. I was just so dumbfounded at that point in my life about how no one could see through the obvious lie that was 9/11. It just couldn't have been any more transparent to me. The way the towers were demolished, the planes melting into the building, blaming a man on a cave who every 3 months released a new tape. I mean, how's he sending these tapes from his cave in Afghanistan to CNN's studio? Just the whole thing was so dumb, yet no one could see through it. And to me, the best way to explain it was there was some sort of spell going on. And I realized the spell had a lot to do with what was coming through the television, because people seem to be under hypnosis when they watch the TV. They just regurgitate what they see. They don't think critically. And again, to go back in time, long before television, long before 9/11, this Kabbalah, it's part of Hermeticism. There's something called Hermetic Kabbalah. And in Hermeticism, there's 7 key principles. One of them is vibration. Everything has a vibration. Every number has a vibration. And when you understand the vibrations and, what numbers they correspond with, what things they correspond with, you can become masters of this knowledge, and you can use the knowledge and things such as vibration to manipulate the world around you. Now, even though I understand the code and I see how numbers and letters have these relationships that recur all the time, I'm not a master of this knowledge. I don't understand the rules of vibration. But the people who do this, who cast the spells, if you will, they do, and perhaps in time we'll figure it out. But understand, this knowledge has been around for thousands of years. It's been studied by groups of people over a long period of time. We're just coming to understand it in recent years. So there's still a lot more dots to connect. All right, Mr. Tanks has 2 questions. Who's the mastermind behind pre-planning these scripted outcomes? Is it a single individual, group of Jews, or what? The stuff is genius and sickening at the same time. So I think it's definitely a group of people. And we know that there's a network of people throughout the world who are versed in this knowledge. I think ultimately what's going on is we have this network of Freemasons in high places that are aware of the code, that work together, that communicate together. And because they are experts in what they're doing, they know how to work as a team. And I think this network has most definitely grown over time as the New World Order agenda's grown. So that's my take on it. But again, I don't know these things. I'm in the same position as all you guys. I'm just trying to figure it out from the outside. But to me, it would make sense that a network of people are doing it as opposed to one person. Why are the gematria numbers to my name so weird? Like I'm a shill or something. He points out his name, David Tanks equals 33, and David Wayne Tanks Jr. equals 66. Well, remember, the numbers are dualistic. So there's no number that's all good or all bad or that belongs to Masonry. They use these numbers for a reason. And the numbers that they choose are numbers of significance, numbers of power. The number 33, it's the master teacher number. The word teacher equals 33. Remember, people, person, society, they all equal 33. We have 33 vertebrae in our back. Words such as justice have gematria 33. So numbers not all bad. Then again, the word shill equals 33, right? So he's saying I have these numbers of a shill. But again, dualistic, no numbers, all good or bad. And with regards to your name also equaling 66, well, you took to this code, Mr. Tanks. The word math is also 66. If you write out 33, it sums to 66. It's interesting how his name comes together like that. And again, it seems that there is an organic side to this code, as I've talked about before. So this person says, I'd like to know if Steve Irwin's death was not an accident. His death was definitely not an accident. Used to have a video on it, still have a blog post on it. Check it out. be sure to use my blog. If you just use your cell phone for the internet, at the bottom of my blog page, you can click where it says View Web Version. When you do that, then the search box appears in the top left, and you can type in Steve Irwin. And you can go back and read my post. And someday I'll upload all my videos again. So this person says, what do you think about the power of mentalism? That's the first rule of Hermeticism. Everything is mental. Yeah, I think mentalism is everything. You know, you focus on positive things, you make positive things happen. You focus on the negative, you make the negative happen. And I've been trying to explain this concept long before I knew about Hermeticism or these ancient teachings to my mother. My mother could be the most negative person on the planet. If the glass was all the way full, it would look empty to her. She always focuses on the negative, and just bad stuff is always coming into her life. Her car always gets keyed. I don't know anyone else who's always getting their car keyed. And I don't know if she's pissing people off or what, but just always just bizarre things are happening to her. People are always running into her rear end of her car. She's always focused on the negative, and negative stuff just always comes to her like a magnet. And it's mentalism. And, you know, they say men often end up with women who are like their mothers. I can tell you, I have not been that way. But my father, his mother is super negative. She just always assumes the worst. She's the same thing. The glass is full. She sees it as empty. And it was probably a year ago now, but she was just like going on about all this stuff. And I said to her, Grandma, sometimes you just got to be positive, and then, you know, you'll feel better. And she said back to me, she goes, Zachary, that is bullshit. So anyway, you know, mentalism, it's real. And I think anybody who focuses on the positive, who sets goals and keeps their mind to it, I think that they know the power of this. And for anyone who could witness my mother, you would see how it just goes the opposite way too. But my mother seems to be incapable of changing herself, and it's too bad. You know, it's too bad. I have a story too, you know, just about this. I have actually multiple stories with my mother and negativity, but here's two that really stand out. My mom lives down in Portland. I was probably in my mid-20s, and whenever I go down to visit in Portland, I always like to drive back late at night because there's not traffic. If you drive from Portland to Seattle in the daytime, there's always going to be traffic in the Tacoma and Seattle area. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is, but if you drive at night, you can skip all the traffic. So I almost always travel at night. For some reason, one time my mom just started freaking out. She's like, I don't want you to leave right now. I got a really bad feeling something's going to happen if you leave right now. And so, just because she was freaking out, I said, all right, I'll leave early tomorrow morning. So, I left early the next morning, and on the way back to Seattle, there was a semi in front of me. The semi actually decided to pass this car in another lane and kind of like cut me off, because I was in the left lane. And when it was accelerating, this piece of metal, to this day I still don't know exactly what it was, but I remember how it came off the back of the truck and how it was like skipping on the road. And it was like an awkward shape, so it was bouncing. I couldn't tell which way it was going to bounce, so I tried to swerve out of the way, but it bounced back, and it just tore out my two tires on my passenger side. I was just so annoyed, because I was thinking, right when it happened, I was thinking, God, I was going to leave last night. You know, this wouldn't have happened. My mom had this horrible feeling, so she just wanted me to stay. And now look, this crazy piece of metal debris came off. It smashed the bumper of my car, went under my two tires, tore them up. And I was like stranded exactly in the midway point between Portland and Seattle. But I that's all I could think of in the moment, is just how my mom was just freaking out that something bad was going to happen. And anyway, so I took her advice, and then something bad happened. And another really bizarre story with my mother is, I was in college. It was between my freshman and sophomore year, and she was having her house work done by this contractor who wasn't doing the job right, so she told him she didn't want him to do the work anymore, and then he was mad because he wanted his money. And I guess he started threatening her. So she asked me to come home from college while this man was doing this because she felt threatened. It was actually over summer break, so I wasn't in class, but I was working. I worked at a restaurant. And I ended up coming home for her. I drove all the way home from Phoenix to Portland, Oregon. And I drove all the way straight through. I was completely exhausted. When I woke up, she asked me if I could go buy new locks and install all new locks because this man had a key to the house. So I get up, I'm tired. I'm driving to the hardware store. I'm not even that far from the house. I'm at the stop sign that's like maybe a quarter mile from my mother's house. And while I'm stopped, it's a four-way intersection. On the other side of the intersection goes into a parking lot for a grocery store. And then the street that comes across this way, it's a 25-mile-per-hour street. Well, while I'm at the stop sign, I notice this Mercedes is just hauling ass down this street. It's going way over 25. And for whatever reason, the Mercedes slams on its brakes, loses control, and crashes into the front of my car. And I was like, what is going on? And I still remember this guy had bright red hair and a beard. And when his car was swerving towards me, I could see through his windshield because it's like all in slow motion when you get hit. And I just remember his facial expression. He looked crazy. And anyway, so he collides in the front of my car. What I was impressed with was my car was a Honda Civic, and maybe it was just the angle it hit, but the front of his car was really wrecked. And my car was smashed too, but his car looked a lot worse than mine. I thought, wow, the Honda held up better than the Mercedes. But after he got out of his car, he said sorry. He just got in a really bad fight with his significant other, and he wasn't in his right mental place. And anyway, I called my mother because I wasn't far from the house, and I said, some guy just crashed into me at the stop sign. I said, can you... And I started to freak out right away. I said, just relax. I was at the stop sign. There's nothing I could do. But I said, can you just come here and take a picture? It's back before we had cell phones and smartphones with cameras on them. This was 2002, I believe. I was freshman, sophomore. Yeah, it should have been 2002. So, anyway, my mom shows up, right? And this guy, my mom's name's Donna. This guy who just crashed into me, he goes, what the fuck are you doing here, Donna? And I was like, what? Turns out that this guy who just crashed into my car is the same guy that my mother's afraid of and the reason I just had to come home. This is the guy that was working on her house. Now he just crashed into my car. And it was just like such a weird moment for us. Like, what in the world is going on? I drive home because my mom's freaking out about this guy. Now he crashes into the front of my car. I think somehow my mother creates all this, because my mother just has the craziest shit happen. You know, she has these negative feelings all the time that horrible things are going to happen to her. That said, she's always been worried she's about to die from something, and she hasn't died yet to date. But, I mean, she just brings so much crazy negative shit into her life and other people's life because she's just always focused on it. So, yeah. Mentalism, I think mentalism is everything. I think Hermeticism is absolutely right about that. All right, next question. Since the NFL is scripted, how come no ex-players come on YouTube and say it is? Well, you know, that's a good point because I often say that, you know, these players can't get their voice out in the media. The media controls all the information that goes out. It's on TV delay. So I suppose they could go on YouTube and upload their content. But like I always say, the majority of these people in the world of athletics are born into it. They have fathers, they have family members that are into it. Also, they have things on the line. In college, they have scholarships, and a lot of them get money under the table. In the pros, they get money and access to things and power. So, you know, there's a lot of reasons that they wouldn't speak out. How many athletes just drop dead out of nowhere? We don't know all what's going on behind the scenes. We know people are being murdered by the code. Perhaps these people they know within the industry, keep my mouth shut, go along, get my money, keep my fame. I mean, I don't think that the majority of people realize human sociology. Most people will not stick their neck out for anything. How many of you work at a place where corruption goes on all the time and you know about it, but you don't say a peep? You don't say a peep because you want your paycheck and you want your job. This is the way the world works. I know this is the way the world works. I'm one of the only people that sticks my neck out anywhere. Everywhere I go, I hear people bitching when the boss isn't around, complaining. Things are fucked up. All these complaints. But do they ever do anything about it? No. Most people are cowardly, you know? Most people don't care about justice. Most people just care about their own interests, you know? So, I don't know why so many people struggle with this. It's like they can't even look at themselves and see how cowardly they are. Or maybe they assume they're the only coward. But I just know that almost everybody's a coward. And I know this is true. I know this for a fact. Almost everyone is a coward. Nobody sticks up for anything. You know? Selfishness, cowardism. That's what humanity is. So, that's why you don't see these people speaking out. They're all part of the network too. I think a lot of these people were bred for their future role. You know? A lot of these athletes could also be under total mind control. We don't know all what's going on. What did I just show you about the Heisman again? Baker Mayfield equals 239. He wins the Heisman 239 days after his birthday. Who's named Baker Mayfield? Only these athletes. Clinton Dix. Who's named that? Jake Butt. You know, drafted by Denver out of Michigan as the pick that corresponded with Catholic Church right after his college coach visited with the Pope days before. Think about it. Jake Butt, sodomy, Catholic Church. If you missed my work on that, go back and look. That was this past year's draft. Sick little riddle in the draft. Shows you what's going on with these athletes. This person says, hey, Zach, I think IK means I know. Just so you guys know this about me, I hate texting culture and acronyms. I mean, how long does it take to write I know? Anyway, hey, Zach, IK, you said before the Bible is coded with gematria by the Masons, but you also think that there is a creator. Is there truth to the story of Yeshua, or has it been ripped off from Osiris in Egypt? And also that the Jews in Israel are the false Jews of the Bible and the blacks are the true Jews. What's the point of fulfilling their own prophecy about false Jews if indeed the false Jews are the ones who coded it that way? Also, if indeed we are living in a Saturn matrix, do you think it's being coded by the Kabbalah, like binary computer coding? Kind of like the movie The Matrix, and also if you believe that. I mean, look how many questions are in here. You guys, how about, like, look at how many complicated questions this person's asking. If you're going to ask a question. Don't ask 20 questions in one question, okay? Okay, so they're asking about the Hermetic belief of vibration. I already answered that. Okay, so, look. I'm not saying, you guys, it's not just that I'm saying, it's that it's easily provable that the entire Bible is coded in this language. I mean, it's undeniable. It's undeniable. Genesis 3:2:2, about good and evil, connected to the tree of life. The tree of life, Kabbalah, a good half, an evil half. There's 3 columns in the tree of life, 22 past, Genesis 3:2:2. We know how important this number is. Again, ancient mystery religions equals 3:2:2, which is Kabbalah and Hermeticism and all the knowledge that goes way back. Abrahamic religions, 3:2:2, which is Judaism, Christianity, Islam. So, the code is definitely real, and everything in the Bible is based on knowledge that came before it, which goes back to Egypt, which goes back to Babylon, you know. The Egyptians that's not where the knowledge begins either. It all goes back to Babylon. Thoth. That the Egyptians created him. He's credited with all the knowledge that came from the Babylonians. So, yes, to answer the question, Bible based in older teachings. And if you realize the parallels, all of these religions go back to what's happening in the sky. And it's not any different for the Bible. That's why the Christian holiday of Christmas is now on the pagan festival of the birthday of the solar man. And again, solar man equals 93, just like God's son, just like Nazareth, just like crucifix, just like the sun's 93 million miles away. And as for why, the false Jews would be following the prophecy of the Bible, I don't know. It's just how they did it. I mean, people create a plan. It's like the Bible is their game plan. This was their plan. This is what we're going to live out. Look at what they're doing. They've created this prophecy. Everyone, well, not everyone, but so many Christians, they think all these horrible things happening in the world are the sign that their Savior is about to return. They've created a story for people to live by. They've created a story to control people by. And they've created essentially a playbook that they can operate by, that they are operating by, and they're achieving their agenda. And why are they doing it this way? I mean, I don't know. I can't answer that. I've been around since 1983, but it's just the way they decided to do it. This is the path they chose. This is the way they're going about it. And it's like they want to be God, right? They want to be God. They want to convince people that they're God. They want people to think that their actions are the work of God. So I guess that's why they did it this way. But you're asking me to explain why insane people chose to go about it this way. It's what they chose. It's the way they're doing it. And as we can witness, their plan is being achieved. So I guess it wasn't such a bad plan after all for them, Well, thanks, Randy. Randy says, I'm the best truther out there. David German says, why is 1 not a prime number? Well, once upon a time, 1 was considered a prime number, and I asked the same question. I mean, to me, 1 should be a prime number because it can only be divided by itself and 1. And perhaps that's actually the reason, because maybe that's where the argument it is. Because the definition of a prime number is a number that can only be divided by itself and 1. Maybe because 1 just is 1, they said, well, it's not prime, it's something different. It's the starting point for all numbers. 1's the only number that divides into all numbers. So maybe 1 is unique in that regard. Here are my questions. What is your view on Jesse Ventura? He's obviously one of them, He tries to go on TV and have his conspiracy theory show and give people ideas. And I'm not saying his information's bad. Long before we had Donald Trump with his wall, I guess the Republicans have always talked about building a wall between Mexico and the United States. But Jesse Ventura, he said back then, when they build the wall, remember that wall's to keep you in. So, yeah, I think things like that were good for people to think about. But it's very clear that Jesse Ventura's in on the know. He's part of that skit from the 1989 WWE WrestleMania with Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage talking about tearing the World Trade Centers down. All the language that they use in that's obvious predictive programming for September 11th. Jesse Ventura was part of that skit. A lot of these celebrities, they're in on the code. Just like how you had Prince in 98 singing in Europe about how Osama's getting ready to drop the bomb in America. The celebrities, and this is another thing to understand for all of you who don't get it with the athletes. Look, these people are living on a different tier of life. They have information that we're not allowed to have. They're sworn to secrecy. They're paid. They're born into it. They're living in a different world of information than we are. So, these celebrities, you know, you get a guy like Jesse Ventura, he does a show and tries to clue people in and ask these questions. So, Jesse Ventura, he's one of them, but maybe, you know, you got to say, well, at least he gave people some information, some things to think about. He did a show on heart, put out information about heart. Then he says, and when there is a ritual sacrifice or murder, does the one killed know it's going to happen? And lastly, I was wondering if you could talk about Brett Favre's run with the Minnesota Vikings. A lot of questions, too. I've talked about this before. It seems that some of these people... Okay, let's just talk about the Jesuit order. They're killers all throughout history. They murdered by the code. Jesuit equals 84. The Jesuit order equals 84. The Catholic Church equals 84. Masonry 84. Ignatius of Loyola, who established the Jesuit order, he died 84 days from his birthday. Jesuits have killed a lot of people over the years by the number 84. They even killed their founder by that number. So, did he go out willingly? Another part of Hermeticism is reincarnation, and all of this knowledge is intertwined. So sometimes I wonder if these people do willingly go out by the code, thinking they'll come back in a younger body or born again. You know? Michael Jackson, Farrah Fawcett, they both died on June 25th, the day that leaves 189 days left in the year. That's a number that has to do with reincarnation. We know that Michael Jackson came back on Larry King as Dave. But there's definitely something going on, you know? Are some people actually dying with the hope of coming back? Are some people faking their deaths and then essentially coming back as a secret personality so they're out of the limelight? Could be a combination of these things. He says, Stephen Shields says, what does G mean as in Freemasonry symbol? Means a number of things. G's the seventh letter. Seven, so special. Sacred. Symbolizes the divine. You know, Freemasonry, you have to believe in God. You have to believe in the Creator. Think about how G's the first letter in God. Also, think about how the compass above the G is at 47 degrees. G's the seventh letter. The numbers that divide into 4, 1, 2, and 4, equal 7. 1 plus 2 plus 4 is 7. 7's the fourth prime. Masonic 74. So, 7, G, they're related. Think about God creating the world in 7 days. The Freemasons are builders. You see? Is Gatorade a Freemasonic drink? Yes, it absolutely is. I used to have a video on Gatorade. Do some decoding. Find a lot of things. And also, I did mean to talk about Brett Favre in Minnesota, the other question up here. I'm thinking about the death of Prince in Minnesota and Wisconsin, neighboring states. The Packers have Rodgers and they have Nelson as star players. Rodgers the quarterback, Nelson the receiver. Prince's name is Prince Rogers Nelson. Again, there's really weird things going on in the world of celebrity. People being farmed for their positions. Things are being planned long in advance. Let's pay attention to what happens with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in this year of Super Bowl 52. Remember, Rodgers went down with his injury against the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota equals 52. Prince died last year. Denny Green's death was connected to Prince's death. Denny Green died the day before they opened the stadium that's hosting Super Bowl 52. He died 52 days before the Vikings opener. I think somehow all of this stuff is really bizarre ritual. And I suspect that somehow even Favre playing for the Vikings, as well as the Jets at the end of his career, factors into that narrative. So we'll put the pieces of the puzzle together eventually. Might want to check my blog. I think maybe I've done some work on Favre and the Vikings in the past. I can't remember everything. But I'm just thinking about it in light of this season with what's going on with Minnesota in Wisconsin and the Super Bowl and the Rodgers injury. Of course, Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback that replaced Brett Favre in Green Bay. I covered the death of Max Clifford. Looks like I even responded to this guy. See my blog because he asked the question after I'd already answered it. But what stood out to me is the mainstream media used a picture of Max Clifford and O.J. Simpson. I saw this all over in mainstream reporting. Max Clifford and O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson got the story about how he could be freed from prison, and that was exactly 74 days before he was released. And the word free equals 74. So I thought it was real curious that Max Clifford died at 74 in prison and the mainstream media was using the story with O.J. Simpson. Is it possible that he was really released from prison and people were told he was dead? You know what I mean? Now he's not in prison anymore. People think he's dead. He can live the rest of his life outside, possibly under another identity. So that was my thought on that. There was also some other curious things. Check out my blog. There's a post on it. All of you who continue to ask me questions without reading my blog, you guys all collectively waste my time. I don't do this work for nothing. I put it out so people can check it out, get the answers. In the same time it takes to ask me that question, you can type in my blog address. Then you can just save it and bookmark it. You can scroll through it. What is God? Is there a heaven and hell? You know, I think God is everything. God is everything. It's us. It's the earth. It's what we see in the sky. God is all things. That's what I think God is. Interestingly enough, the word God equals 26. So does heaven. So does hell. In the 26th verse of the Bible, man's created. The name Adam equals 26. The word bones equals 26. The word anatomy equals 26. There's 206 bones in the human body. I think this is essentially what the ancients believed too, and I think the reason the number 26 has been coded into the name God in Hebrew and in English is because, you know, we're the reflection of God and 26 pertains to us. We're one of the only living creatures that stands upright. In the Bible it says we're made in the image of God. Part of the reason we can stand up is because of what's going on with our feet and ankles, which there's 26 bones in each of. The word carbon's 26, you know, carbon in all living things. So, again, I think God is all things. You look at the world and you see all the things wrong with it. It seems to me that God has created a dualistic world. Everything is equally matched. There's as much evil as there is good. All of us, within us, we're conflicted people. Somebody asked me before, why would God create a world this way? And perhaps, why did God create the world in the first place? So many people don't believe in God, but to me, to not believe in God, that's a religion in itself. But if there's not a God, where did anything come from? How could just something come from nothing? And of course, you'd have to say, well, where did God come from? But it's easier for me to think that, well, if the first thing was God, then I could see how there could be a creating starting point. But imagine that there is a God. And what's God going to do? God has to, we all got to be entertained, I guess. So perhaps God created a world to amuse God's self. And God wanted to make this world have all the obstacles and challenges we see in it. The world's a complicated place, and I question our existence too, and what's the point of it all, and I just try to make sense of it day by day. And okay, let's talk about what happened to me earlier this week. So, earlier this week, I was being medicine man. I got this older customer, very nice person, very overweight, and I see him about once a month. And I noticed that he looked like he'd slimmed down quite a bit from the last time I saw him and from the last several times I saw him. He's got a protruding belly. And it wasn't so bad this time. It was It looked like he'd lost at least 20 pounds. And while I was there, he always talks to me a little bit. He told me that, he's got some bad news from his doctor recently, and he's not sure how much longer he's going to be around. But he seemed like his jolly old self, so I just said to him, I said, well, just stay positive, man, and stay happy, and you'll outlive whatever that doctor told you. But he said, so anyway, I'm trying to take care of myself, and I'm trying to lose some weight and eat healthier, and he said, I'm working on my karma right now. He said, what I'm doing is I'm going to the homeless shelter every day, and I'm bringing 20 sandwiches, and I'm feeding 20 people every single day. And he said, I haven't missed a day for the past 3 weeks. And I said, well, good for you, man. And he said, I'm going to continue to do this until my last day. I said, that's great. And so the word was karma. And after I left his house, I had to stop by the grocery store. And when I was coming out of the grocery store, I saw this minivan. I was just still in the parking lot at a stop sign. Busy street. And you got to wait a while to make your turn. While I was at the stop sign, this minivan was just flying up behind me. There's actually a speed bump in the parking lot, and it went so fast over the speed bump. I mean, the car was just like rocking like nuts. And it wasn't slowing down. I was like, oh my God, this minivan's going to hit me. And the minivan slammed on its brakes and stopped and probably this far, just barely off the screen, from hitting the car. But then after it came to a complete stop, I was like, thanking God. I was like, oh, thank you. And as I was thanking, then the van just accelerated. It didn't just let its foot off the brake. It started to drive again. And it just drove right into the back of me. And I thought, what is this person doing? So, put my car, set the emergency brake, put it in neutral. And I walked back and I said to the person, I saw it was a woman. And I said, are you okay? And then they responded like, and I was like, oh, okay, this person's obviously drunk. And I noticed they had a child in the back seat. And I said, are you okay? And the woman said, oh, I'm having a bad day, and we just had to put down our dog, and I got to get my son home. And I said to her, it doesn't look like you should be on the road right now. And I said, do you have insurance? So she was fumbling around, and so while she was fumbling around, I went and looked at the back of my car and where she hit. And I could see it was a little bit scratched and dinged up. But it wasn't real bad. And I was deciding what to do. I was like, should I call the police and file a report? I mean, if she's drunk, if the police show up, she's going to get arrested. And it looked like she was pretty drunk. So anyway, she told me she had insurance. She couldn't find her insurance at the moment. She said she lived right down the street. And I was thinking, oh, great. Am I going to let her drive away from the scene and then have no evidence that she even hit me? But I was trying to decide what to do. I was thinking, okay, do I call the cops? If I call the cops, again, she's going to probably get arrested in front of her child. Is this worth it? My bumper's not that bad. I mean, is it worth creating a huge legal problem for them and embarrassing her in front of her child? I mean, so what I said is, okay, if you live right down the street, I had her show me her ID, and it had her address, and I saw that she lived close by. She lives close to me. So I said, okay, I'm going to follow you back to your house, and we're going to find your insurance there. Well, when we got back to her house, it was, the sun sets early here. It was about 4:45 that she hit me. By the time we got back to her house, about 5 o'clock, and she lived on this dark wooded street. It was already dark, and no street light on the street. So we get back to her house, and for whatever reason, cell phone, you can get that app for your flashlight. I couldn't get my flashlight to work, and she couldn't get hers to work either, because we were trying to look at the damage and search for her ID. So she goes, I think your car's fine. I'm just going inside. I said, lady, you hit me. There's some damage to the car. What am I just supposed to pay for it? She goes, I'm going inside. It's cold. So, anyway, she sent her husband outside. So her husband came out, and her husband was an honest guy. He said that, yeah, his wife has a drinking problem. He also revealed to me that she had a suspended license, so she wasn't even supposed to be on the road, and I didn't catch that. But look at this. essentially what ended up happening, him and I ended up working out a negotiation. He said he would take care of the damage. They did have insurance. I went to a car repair shop. I got a few quotes. I gave him the middle quote. He ended up paying me cash for the middle quote and damage. So we agreed there. But the point was, this situation came into my life, right? This situation came into my life. I have this drunk woman with a child in her car hitting the back of my car. And thankfully it wasn't worse. If he didn't slam on the brakes, it would have been a lot worse wreck. After it happened, I just wanted to look at what day I was in my own, my own place in my current age. I just wanted to see, if there was a reason this happened. Is there some reason that this bizarre lady crashed into the back of my car and I had to make this decision about calling the cops, possibly getting her in trouble? So, I looked, and it was exactly my 144th day of being 34 years old. And because I know the code, things jumped out right away. I'm 34. That's the 9th Fibonacci number. This happened in the month of December. December has the gematria 55. That's the 10th Fibonacci number. Fibonacci also equals 55. My full name equals 89, just like my father's full name equals 89, just like my mother's birthday is 8/9. Born on the record, coldest day, negative 89 Celsius. That's the 11th Fibonacci number. And then the 12th Fibonacci number is 144. So I get hit on my 144th day of being 34. Also, my parents' birthdays are 144 days apart. And here I am in the time of Sagittarius that this happened, which equals 144. So I thought, how weird. Perfect Fibonacci lineup. Plus, what I saved this woman from, a DUI equals 34. And I shared this story with somebody, and they said I did the wrong thing because they said all drunk drivers should be punished, and this woman will probably go out and do it again. Well, I talked to her husband. Her husband said, that they've been together for a long time, and this is her first car accident in all the years that they've been together. And he said she has been going through a rough patch. They did lose their animal recently. She's been working a lot. So it's possible, well, it does seem that this, I just ran into her on her worst day. And even though I was nice to her and helped her out, she was really rude back to me. Even when we got back to her house. She wasn't even going to help me out. She was going to go to her house and tell me I was fine and I should just go home. Meanwhile, I could have just made her life living hell. She could have been in a jail cell, and she didn't show any gratitude for that. But to me, it's not about that. To me, it's the fact that her child, who was there, would have witnessed the mother being arrested, and then, he would have been having to sit there with the cops and wait for the father to come pick him up. What kind of memory would that have been for the child? And also, before this happened, I just been talking to this man about karma and doing the right thing. So it almost seemed to me that God, who works in mysterious ways, sent this thing into my life to see how I would handle the situation. Some people would say I did the wrong thing, I let this drunk driver get away with it, maybe they'll do it again. I'd like to think, though, that the husband, and I know that the husband's been talking to her. What's funny is the husband, because he got my name, he ended up looking me up online and he found my research. And then he wanted me to meet at a coffee shop and talk to him about this research because he found it fascinating. So I actually ended up going and talking to him and shared with him some of this knowledge. So anyway, but he also talked about how he talked to his wife and let her know she has to get her stuff under control and she can't be driving. She has a suspended license. So anyway, what is God? I think God ultimately is this thing that has built this world for us that is a test. And does that mean that you go to heaven or hell? I don't know, To me, what makes the most sense is reincarnation. And at the same time, it almost seems that the world could be heaven or hell, but it's dictated by the behavior of humanity. And because as a people, collectively, because we're behaving so horribly, and I know that's true. I mean, people are operating out of selfishness and greed and not caring about their fellow man. I think we've turned the world into a hell. So can it be corrected? I think it can be corrected. Ian says, cool stuff. Thank you, Ian. Tony Harris says, Zach, can you please do Nancy Kerrigan, Tonya Harding? Okay, I'll look into that. I've never covered that before. But you know what's funny? Tonya Harding, she used to live in Camas, Washington. I moved to Vancouver, Washington, which is right next to Camas. I used to see Tonya Harding often at the grocery store. She's if Tonya Harding's a celebrity, she's the celebrity I've seen the most in my life. She'd always be shopping at the same Albertsons that was right by my house. And Tonya Harding wasn't a rich person by any means. You know, a lot of people would see Tonya Harding shopping at that store, and nobody really talked to her because she was somebody who was, you know, shunned in the public. Had a negative relationship with the public because of her story from the Olympics. But yeah, I'll look into that. Once upon a time, if I would have known the code, I could have asked Tonya Harding about it in person. This person writes, curious as you can shed some light on emerald tablets. So that's part of Hermeticism. If you never read the emerald tablets before, there's multiple translations. Just look them up. Look up the emerald tablets. It's a page to read. Very simple. Very simple spiritual philosophy. So emerald tablets fits into, again, Hermeticism, Hermetic Kabbalah, Thoth. Do you put on a Christmas tree? Do you happen to know where that custom originated from? Yeah, it comes from the pagans. Do I put up a Christmas tree? You want to know what's funny? This is the first year of my life in any place I've ever lived in, apartment or house, where there's a Christmas tree. And there's the only reason a Christmas tree is up this year is because my twin sister neighbors brought one over. They asked me, they said, Zach, how come you never put up any lights or have a Christmas tree? And I said, well, I'm just not into the tradition. I don't celebrate it. And they said back to me, they said, people love that word, don't they? They said, that is bullshit, Zach. We're getting you a Christmas tree this year. So they brought me a little tiny one. It's very small. And what's funny is the week after they brought it over, they asked if I could come over and put up Christmas lights on their house. So I ended up putting up Christmas lights on their house. And I got to tell you, I was murmuring and cussing to myself a lot because they were all brand new, which means they all needed to be clipped. And the entire time I was doing it, it was raining and just barely above freezing. So it was like 30-some degrees, rain, and I was getting soaked. I was so cold by the time I was done putting up their Christmas lights, and I was just thinking, is it even really worth it? But they're grateful, so. I don't normally put up a Christmas tree. I do have one in my house this year for the first time in my life. That is thanks to my neighbors. And again, Solar Man, pagan celebration. You bring the tree in the house. Christmas, same day as the pagan Solar Man celebration. The winter solstice. This person says, what do I think about urine therapy? I don't know anything about it. You know, I've heard about this. Drinking, bathing in your urine. I guess when I was a child, I would pee in the bathtub, so that's as close as I've ever come to it. But I don't know. You know, I do think eating fruits and vegetables is correct. I am a vegetarian. Been vegan for part of my life. You know what? I guess technically right now I'm not a vegetarian. I'm a pescatarian because we do eat some fish. My girlfriend likes fish. But 90% of my diet is vegetables and rice. My girlfriend likes rice. And I learned about vegetarianism, veganism after September 11th. I started looking for answers to truth in this world. One of the first things I came across was diet. Learned a lot about the true history of human health and the research that's been done. And I learned that people who eat a vegetarian, vegan diet live a lot longer, get a lot less disease and illness, get sick a lot less. And you guys, I should be living proof of this to you. I mean, I've been paying attention. How many times have you seen me sick in the time I've been doing this research. In the entire time I've been doing this research, I've been sick for 1 day. I got a small head cold. It lasted 1 day. So, what else? What's the convincing part of a prediction? What info makes for a stronger prediction? What angle should be covered? Seems easier to predict staged games outcomes than a staged current event. I see connection, by the way, what you speak of and what Dan picks up on, as well as Derek and Chigozi. However, I can't tell if I'm seeing these hints connections because I'm looking for it. And then the rest of their comment got cut off. So, what makes for a convincing prediction? Well, I've made a lot of convincing predictions in the time I've been doing this. Calling out who's going to win the championship, what the score is going to be, who's going to be the MVP, what tributes to look for in the game. Been doing this a number of times, in a number of ways, professional and college. Calling out celebrity deaths and the numbers to look for. Prince to Muhammad Ali. It's happened. So, what makes for a convincing prediction? Making the prediction and it being correct. How many days did I say last year we're going to have false flags and false flags hit on them? The weekend of Yom Kippur, I said look for the worst false flags since September 11th. It happened in Las Vegas. These are convincing predictions. And because I've made so many predictions like this, it's a shame that my work hasn't reached more people. It definitely deserves to, but it's being censored. It's being kept from people. It's being purposefully squashed in views on the web. I have people sabotaging me, trying to make me look bad. I have shills and trolls that spend 24/7, 365 on my work. As for his final question, let's see. What angles should be covered? Well, the exact angles that I do cover. Why those dates? What makes them important? Where the code comes from, all the things we talk about. And then his other part is he says he can't tell if he's seeing these things because he's looking for them. Well, if you look for something, you're definitely going to see it a lot more. It's just like you learn a word for the first time and then the next day or maybe later that same day or later that same week, you hear somebody else use the word and you think, weird, I never heard this word before. Now I hear it all the time. Something new gets introduced to you that you never noticed before, all of a sudden it's showing up. So that's consciousness. Being aware of something, now you're going to see it a lot more. It works for all things that way. If you look for something, then you're going to find it even more, right? And, Derek right now, in his work, he's trying to achieve something with gematria. He's trying to, what Derek's going through is exactly what Brother Berg did. Brother Berg was one of the first people to find my work and start a blog and start making videos. And he fell into some early patterns in his early research, and then he would try to connect everything to those patterns. And he would make these connections and numbers, and he would make these predictions off them, but then the predictions wouldn't land. And I would say to him, well, it's because you're using... because what he was doing is he'd say like the number was 143... Then he'd say 341, 143, 431. He'd say all the different variations of that number were essentially the same thing. And then he'd make these predictions off of that. And they weren't landing. And I'd say, I would say, this isn't the way to do it. It's better to just decode and stick to the number and see how that same number is used repetitively. And Derek's doing something similar right now. He's like trying to take... First of all, he's using a ton of ciphers. We didn't used to have all these ciphers. And he's looking for certain numbers in each of those ciphers. And then he's taking variations of that number and he's making them all line up with eclipses. And he's trying to say it's all based on the eclipse. And he's doing this because he started to learn about this in the year of the big eclipse. And so this is where his initial research was. I see Derek doing the same thing that Brother Berg did. And I don't think it's a good way to do this research. I think it's forcing it and trying to make connections. And absolutely, things have been lined up with the eclipse. We've been talking about that all year. But is it everything? Because Derek's trying to connect everything to the eclipse. And he's trying to bring everything back to the same numbers. And in doing so, he's losing sight of things that are more important, more transparent, and easier to show. And so that's how I'd answer the question. Yeah, if you try to see something, if you try to find it, you'll recognize a lot more. And if you try to force it, you can make it happen too. This person asked me about vegetarianism. Again, proof that vegetarianism is the diet that's meant for us is our intestines. A carnivore has a short intestine tract that's mostly short. You know, a carnivore can also eat raw meat, has teeth that are meant to tear apart meat. And our canines are nothing. People will say, well, if we're meant to eat fruits and vegetables, what do we got these canines for? Look, you guys, our canines are just like an animal that eats plants. Our canines aren't sharp. They don't tear apart raw flesh. We're not like the creatures in The Walking Dead. Our teeth are a lot like animals that eat nothing but fruits and vegetables. Okay? I hate when I hear people say, what about our canines? Like we got sharp teeth, like we're a shark or a wolf or something. We're not. Our intestines are just like animals that eat fruits and vegetables only. And if you eat fruits and vegetables, a lot of people who become vegetarian, what they'll say is, they say, I don't like eating fruits and vegetables because I'm having to go to the bathroom way more. Well, guess what? You're supposed to go to the bathroom way more. Your body processes fruits and vegetables so much more cleanly. The reason the average American is so fat, and they are, you know, most people are obese, overweight. Every time I go to the grocery store, I just get disgusted because I see all these fat people putting all this junk food in there and getting their jugs of milk and their carts all loaded up with meat. The reason that they're so fat is because their intestines are full of all this food that they cannot process, that just gets built up in their body. You know, the average person in America is way backed up with shit in their intestines because they're eating a diet that their body cannot process. Our body was not made. We can do it, but we don't do it efficiently. And that's why there's so many obese people. That's why there's so many unhealthy people. That's why there's so much disease and illness. And that's why people who eat fruits and vegetables are healthier. It's undeniable. It's proven. I'm living proof. You know? Do you think we will see a world in our lifetime that isn't full of stupid fucking sheep who are proud to be stupid fucking sheep and get angry and violent towards those of us trying to help us? You know what? In the Bible, in Hermeticism, it explains that only few people will have eyes to see. You know, it's a rare gift to have eyes to see. It essentially explains that most people are sheep. And in Hermeticism, you're actually said to be a fool if you spend your time trying to wake up the sheep, you know? As if it's an impossible task. And you know, the more time passes and the more I see people not wake up to the obvious and go along with the wrongdoing, the more I think we need to find a way, those of us who are awake, to create our own space, our own colony, if you will, or state, or nation. Somehow it needs to be achieved. There needs to be a place for the sane people of this world. But at the same time, I say, can that work in this world? I mean, we have governments that only want sheep. Are they going to allow a state of non-sheepish people to exist? I mean, I'm sure the United States of America would be in a real hurry to go to a war with that and to bomb the hell out of it with drones. So I don't mean to be Debbie Downer, but I don't know. It seems that based on the knowledge of the ancients, what we see today, it seems that for whatever reason, this is the way the world is. To me, the goal is somehow to make it work for the sane people to come together and have community. And how that can be achieved, I guess that's something we've got to keep working at. So, I wish I had a better answer for that, but it's the way it looks. Well, there's your theory about how sports are rigged. Well, we covered that. These people are paid off, they're born into it, they're farmed into it. They might be under mind control. How do you think they keep athletes, actors, and politicians quiet? Money? We already covered that. My question to you is, what do you think of Jordan Maxwell and Brandon O'Connell? So, Jordan Maxwell has put out some interesting information. He does the thing with Kennedy and Lincoln. But I've seen Jordan Maxwell in recent years saying he's scared to speak out, he's been threatened, he doesn't want to speak out, he's laying low. You know, cowardly. You're already an old man. What are you so afraid of dying for? Just speak out. If they take you out, then that's what happens. If you guys don't realize, I mean, that's the way I am. I live with the threats. Some threats have been delivered on. I'm just going to keep fighting back. And honestly, I'm not that afraid of dying. You know, death ultimately doesn't sound that bad to me. I enjoy living. You know, I have a beautiful girlfriend. There's all sorts of things I like to do, even though these days most of my time is just spent doing this research and putting out truth. But death, it's not that awful to me. You know, what's honestly a more awful thought to me is continuing to live in this world and just watch it get shittier and shittier and shittier. That's more terrifying to me than death. And the other thought that bothers me more than death is living in this world and not fighting back and watching things get worse. Watching us get pushed off the cliff. So Jordan Maxwell, his message in recent years has become, I'm too afraid to speak out because I got threats. I'll still appreciate him for his Lincoln and Kennedy thing, though. This Brandon O'Connell, if I'm not mistaken, he has a YouTube channel that doesn't have that many followers. Now, I'm not that familiar with his work, so as small as his audience is, I don't think he's a shill or an agent. And I don't know enough about him to speak, but I just know he doesn't have that big of a following. Even though sports are scripted, what was your favorite team and player in NFL, NBA, and MLB? Okay. Well, I'm from Portland. The only pro team we had growing up was the Trailblazers. As a child, I liked the same teams my dad liked. My dad was a San Francisco 49er fan, so I liked them. Jerry Rice was, you know, the big star growing up. When I was a child, though, I liked the way Roger Craig ran the ball with his knees all high. So I guess, my favorite football team was the 49ers. Favorite NBA team, the Blazers. My dad's a big Yankee fan. That was my best sport growing up. I was 12 years old when Derek Jeter came into the league and played a lot of baseball back then. I used to idolize Derek Jeter at that age. I wanted to be Derek Jeter, you know. He was so clutch. That's what I liked about him, you know. And now knowing how scripted it is, it all makes so much sense. Just how clutch he was. But that's not to say that people aren't really clutch. You know, as an athlete, I'm clutch. And I always like that. You know, I want to take the last shot. I want to be up to bat when there's 2 outs. There's people who are clutch. But, you know, I really liked Derek Jeter as an athlete when I was a child. And ever since then, I haven't really idolized any athletes. So, last question. This is the end of the line. Well, sir, what do you think it's going to happen after the NWO fulfills the Bible's chapters? And do you think there will be another language worldwide spoken as English? Well, I think that they built English to be the worldwide language, and that's why they've coded it out the way they have and made it line up with all the nations of the world. So I think this is it. And after the NWO fulfills, well, I don't know if they're ever going to fulfill all the chapters of the Bible. Because it doesn't seem that they work through the Bible in logical order. It seems that they skip around and use it ritualistically in ways that have alignment. And talked about this in the past. So I think the Bible will always be their playbook. And I don't know if their agenda will ever be complete. I mean, they pretty much already have a one-world government. They pretty much already have a one-world order. And I think it's just bringing more people into a state of hopelessness and a state of being enslaved to this system. So it's like the order's already established, but how can they pull more people in as indentured servants? And once they have that, I suppose once they have that, then I imagine the next phase in the game would be depopulating. I think, and the reason for that is once they have the technology where they have it, once they have their AI, their robots that can do all the things that we currently do, then we won't be needed anymore. And I just think that's the way it'll go over time. And I think that's still far away. But that's what they want. They want a giant Goyim slave state. In the Talmud, it says when the Messiah arrives, there'll be 2,800 Goyim slaves per Jew. And when they don't need the Goyim anywhere more to maintain their quality of life, when they can just have their AI do it, I don't know what the point of keeping us around anymore is. So I think that'll be the future of humanity. Because again, according to the Talmud, if you're not a Jew, you're an animal. The purpose of your existence is to slave and to work so that they don't have to. I mean, once they have AI robots that can do it all for them, and I imagine that day will come, you know. Technology expands rapidly. When that comes, I don't know what the point of keeping us around anymore is. Because the only thing we pose is a threat to figuring out, just like it says in their Talmud, you know, if we figure out what's going on, we'll kill them. So you get AI that you can completely program, that are completely robotic, then you don't have that threat anymore. All right, Truth Seeker. Until next time, or wait, in response to this video, you guys can ask your questions for next week. Okay, until next time.